I'm Elliot and welcome to Conflict Uncovered, your go-to podcast for in-depth analysis on the complex and dynamic conflicts shaping the Middle East, Israel, and the world. Join us as we delve into the latest developments, historical contexts, and the geopolitical forces at play. We bring you the insights you need to understand the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay engaged, and uncover the truths behind the headlines. Hi, and welcome. It's May 13th here in Israel, late in the afternoon, and the issue of the day is what is going on with President Trump in Israel. So we'll try to cut through some of the rumor, some of the spin, some of the fake news, and let's see what we know for sure, what we can draw from what we know, and dismiss the spin, the rumors, the predictions based on pretty much nothing, and see where we are and how we got to where we are, and maybe look a little bit forward into where we're going. So let's start with a few simple and basic principles. First, is Donald Trump abandoning Israel? I think the answer here is an emphatic no. He's still connected. He's still doing things with Israel and for Israel. However, there are some buts to that we'll deal with in a bit. Second, is there buyer remorse? Well, that all depends on what you've bought and what you were going to buy. A number of commentators, including one in Israel who I hold in reasonably high regard, have raised the issue of, well, maybe we would have been better off with Biden. We have a certain nostalgia for Biden, not insofar as his policies per se, but at least you knew what you were getting. It wasn't zigging and zagging and changing every day, which is also a bit of an overstatement. But it's also a pointless speculation, because the implication is that those who voted for and elected Trump might have been better off voting for and electing Biden, except that Biden wasn't running against Trump. Kamala Harris was. And here, until other information comes in that I don't believe we're going to see, I'll still go with Trump over Harris. The good news, one of the hostages, Idan Alexander, an Israeli with American citizenship, and I say that advisedly because he was born in Israel. He gained American citizenship when his family moved there, came back here to Israel to serve in the army, was taken prisoner and held by Hamas from October 7th. And by virtue of his American citizenship, became a priority for Trump and the administration to get him out. And yesterday he was released by Hamas, at least publicly, in return for nothing. It was done as a gesture for Trump. Now let's keep in mind, and this will apply to a number of things, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And while I'm not going to comment on gestures and gifts until they come through with all of their details, certain 747s come to mind. I will say that when Hamas says we're giving you something for nothing, they're not. And they very, very quickly said we released him in return for a promise of a better gift in return. It always reminds me of one of the great scenes, and there are many from the movie The Godfather, in which the Godfather says, I believe in friendship, and I believe in showing my friendship first. But someday, and that day may never come, and with Hamas you can be sure it's going to come, and it's going to come soon, I will ask you for a favor. Whether that favor has been asked and is already in the works, or it has not yet been asked, or may be asked in multiple ways, once again is something that remains to be seen. But still the good news, one less hostage, one live hostage gotten out, um, and that's an unmitigated good thing. All of the criticism around it has some factual validity, but when we get down to it, getting the hostages out, particularly when there's no direct cost, is certainly a positive thing. Good that it was done, and kudos to Trump and the administration for doing it. If they promised a future draft choice that is anti-Israel, that remains to be seen, and I'll comment on that when we see it when it comes up. Another issue that has spun recently, last week, the abrupt end of the United States bombardment and attacks on the Houthis in Yemen, and the surprise to Israel of learning about it from the media, and Ambassador Mike Huckabee's comment a few days afterwards. Well, America doesn't have to consult with Israel when it changes its strategy or its policy. And here it's one of those, yes, that's true, but it's also irrelevant. And here's for a number of reasons and of concern. First, reports have come out that the decision to end the strikes was made after it was found it was costing $1 billion a month, and there was nothing in return. Well, here, let me say, especially when you're fighting uh, guerrilla/terrorist armies, if you want a quick fix, quick result, you're in the wrong business. Taking out these systems is long, it's hard, it's a an act of as much of stamina as it is of power. And if you don't have it, don't go into it in the first place. So there was a mistake here on one end or another. If the plan was not, and apparently the plan was, to go after them for many, many months, and then it was called off in a short period of time, that kind of change in strategy or change in operation is by definition a mistake. It wasn't as if the United States was taking unanticipated high losses. The two greatest losses to the U.S. were two F-18s that fell off the deck of the aircraft carrier they were on, accidents that maybe should have been prevented, maybe not, maybe couldn't have been, doesn't really matter. If that's going to cause you to pack up and go home, then you shouldn't be in the business of making war. Next, a ceasefire that explicitly leaves Israel out when Israel was on the receiving end of the strikes is also not exactly the act of a friend and an ally. You could consult, you don't have to. You could say, look, we're stopping our strikes, but we're going to back you on this, or we're not going to back you on this. You're on your own. But say so, be upfront about it, and don't leave Israel with this sense of, well, we didn't really have to learn about this from the media, especially when the United States certainly knew how to consult Israel when it started the operation and asked Israel to stop its strikes against the Houthis so America could have a free hand in the air above Yemen. In other words, the United States at least implicitly said, you step back, we've got this, we'll take care of it, and then summarily decided, well, we're not going to take care of it, now it's back on you. A bit of consultation, a bit of warning would have been the proper thing to do, especially since we're not talking about operational urgency. In other words, the statement itself could have been delayed 12 hours, 4 hours, to give the administration a chance to pick up the phone and get somebody on the Israeli side. It doesn't have to be the prime minister. It could be the defense minister. It could be military to military, from CENTCOM to the Israeli general staff, and say, hey, look, we've made a decision. It's not working for us. We're packing up and going home. Next, Trump has taken on the terminology of Hamas in relation to the war in Gaza. Now, here again, should the war be prosecuted? Should it not be prosecuted? Is the pressure on Hamas of value or not? The Israeli government, for a variety of reasons that could be correct, it could be just political posturing, have made the point that one of the reasons that Idan Alexander was released is because of the pressure and the threat of more pressure, military pressure on Hamas in Gaza. You could argue that it is, you could argue that it isn't, it's solely Trump, it's not solely Trump. It doesn't matter. It's an argument and it's a point to be made. Hamas desperately wants a long-term ceasefire, 5 to 7 years, which is about what it will take them to rebuild so they can pull an October 7th style attack again 5 to 7 years down the road. Now, since I have plans on still being around in 5 to 7 years, that doesn't seem to be a terrifically good trade-off. Nonetheless, the side that's pressing to finish off Hamas is Israel. The side that's screaming, don't do it, ceasefire, is Hamas. When Trump tweets, we have to end this brutal war, he's essentially expressing the Hamas position. Now, whether he's doing it intentionally or unintentionally, if it's unintentional, he should be doing a little bit better research. If it is intentional, then it raises a very interesting question of which side America is taking in this, in the position of, well, let's end the war and then what? In other words, once again, if there's a solution that works within Israel's strategic needs, ending the war in its own right, just as a war for a war's sake, is obviously a bad idea. Leaving Hamas in power is a worse idea. So America seems to be pressuring Israel now to go into a long-term agreement. The hostages getting out is a positive aspect of it, although it's my personal belief that Hamas is not going to release all the hostages anytime soon. No matter what agreement is made, they're going to lose them. They won't be able to find them. They're going to move from here to there. We've seen all these tricks before. And at the same time, they will be able to start rebuilding. We've seen already from photographs that they are still managing to bring weapons and munitions into Gaza, even with everything that's going on. The Israeli siege, so to speak, is not hermetic, and we shouldn't expect it to be unless Israel's occupying the entire area or some other force is. And this is not advocacy for an Israeli occupation of Gaza or a military government. That's one option. I'm not convinced that it's the best one. With Iran, Trump went in with threats. We're going to finish them off. We're going to get rid of their nuclear program. Now things are looking positive. Iran is very happy, both from the Houthi and the Iranian point of view, particularly the Iranian one. A gesture by the United States, not very well reported, that the B-2 bombers that were sent to Diego Garcia have been withdrawn, flown back to the United States, replaced with B-52s, which are a threat, but not the same threat as the B-2s were. An easing of tensions, which is a wonderful thing, except that the Iranians are master negotiators, and it looks, at least at this stage, like the need to arrive at a deal is more important than the actual content of the deal. It was a mistake that was made by Obama in the JCPOA. I hope, and I can only hope, that the Trump administration isn't making the same mistake. Let me add to all of this, just as an aside, I believe virtually nothing that is said in public is public statements, but it's all we have to go on at the moment, and it's kind of trying to parse all the pieces and make some sense out of them. Last but not least, and I'll close with this concern, whether America is abandoning Israel or not, and I believe that it is not, there's enough noise being made, and there are enough signs of it that can be spun into that noise, that there are people on all sides, including on the Israeli side, who believe that that's the case, and that's in the process of happening, especially with the Trump visit to the Gulf, starting with Saudi Arabia and then Qatar and the Gulf states, skipping Israel along the way and making a point of saying, I have no intention of going to Israel, which in and of itself doesn't really mean anything, but in the complex of everything that I've just said, it gives the impression that Israel is being pushed into the background and being lowered as a priority to the United States, that America is not really willing to go the distance in terms of supporting Israel. That image, even if it's an illusion, is a dangerous one. Because as we know, and we know this from the days of the Biden administration, every time our neighbors here in the Middle East believe that America is distancing itself or withdrawing support from Israel, Hamas makes its demands tougher, its stance gets tougher. The belief is that we can take a shot at them. It happened twice with the Iranians who believed they could get away with it after the United States basically said, you can hit Israel as long as you don't hit us. Turning around and reneging on that or reversing that a few days later didn't help. And with everything that's going on, including threats now from Turkey as well, a sense that America is not solidly behind Israel is a recipe for disaster. So that's the picture as it stands today. In the world of President Donald Trump, all of this may be wrong by tomorrow, by the time this is actually broadcast. But nonetheless, that's the picture as it stands today on May 13th here in Israel. So with that, stay safe, stay involved, stay engaged, be well. Thank you for listening to Conflict Uncovered. As always, it's been another rough day in the Middle East. We hope you found this episode insightful and engaging. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share and recommend with your friends, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. For more in-depth analysis and exclusive content, join our community and follow us on social media. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to explore the critical issues shaping the Middle East and the world. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.